Sometimes I wonder about certain plots or villains in long-running series and those that were meant to last longer than 1 or 2 seasons and why they exist at all. Not because I hate them, but because they feel unfinished by design. They're introduced with weight, mythology, implication, symbolism, and then quietly abandoned. Not resolved, not defeated, not evolved, just dropped. You see it across genre TV, constantly concepts that feel like seeds for future arcs that never grow. The Splitheads and the Sandmen in Doctor Who, Bureau 13 in Babylon 5, ideas that are framed as bigger than a single episode but never become anything more. Not because they're bad ideas, but because the format, production reality, or shifting priorities leave them stranded. They exist as narrative fossils, proof that the story once wanted to go somewhere darker, wider, stranger, and then simply didn't. Welcome to the Snake Pit, where we're full of bile and venom. I'm your host, Snake Dæmon, and today I'm talking about abandoned mythologies, the villains and concepts that feel like they were meant to matter more, and the ones that quietly rot in the background of a universe that moves on without them. Well, one of them, in specific. Anyone who knows The Crow knows the basic setup. Eric Draven and Shelley Webster are murdered, and Eric is resurrected by a supernatural force, guided by a crow, to enact vengeance, restore balance, and put things right. Love, loss, justice, resurrection, vengeance, myth. It's gothic myth-making, with a revenge narrative wrapped around it. The Crow is not just a symbol, it's a mechanism, a spiritual courier, a psychopomp, a bridge between worlds. That's the core mythology. Clean, focused, singular, but that's not the subject here. Because the TV series The Crow's Stairway to Heaven did something far more interesting and far more dangerous for its own mythology. It tried to expand the cosmology instead of just repeating the revenge loop. And that's where Mace Reyes enters the picture. Mace isn't just another crime lord. He isn't just another corrupt businessman villain. He's constructed as something structurally adjacent to the Crow itself. Not a human antagonist, not a demon in the traditional sense, but a corrupted mirror of the same resurrection mythology. The snakes, the visions, the healing, the symbolism, the transformation. The idea that he isn't just evil, he's evolved. This is where the mythology becomes genuinely fascinating. Mace doesn't fear death, he studies it. He doesn't reject the supernatural, he industrializes it. He doesn't stumble into power, he engineers it. The snake imagery isn't random aesthetic, it's transformation symbolism, shedding skin, evolution through suffering, predation instead of redemption. Where the crow is a guide, the snake is a consumer. Where the crow restores balance, the snake feeds imbalance. And the implication is enormous. If Eric Draven represents resurrection for justice, then Mace represents resurrection for domination, not redemption, not balance, not restoration, control. The series quietly implies a parallel evolutionary path to the Crow, that resurrection isn't unique, it's a category, that the Crow is not the only conduit, that something else can grow in the same metaphysical soil, that if a soul returns twisted instead of righteous, it doesn't become a crow, it becomes something else. That's massive world building. Because now, resurrection isn't a miracle, it's a system, and the snakes appear to function as a kind of parasitic conduit, a visual and symbolic replacement for the crow. If the crow is an external guide, the snake is an internal corruption. One guides, one consumes, one connects, one infects. The idea that Mace can heal, regenerate, and persist implies that resurrection energy isn't morally aligned, it's directionally aligned. It becomes what the soul becomes. Which leads to the most unsettling implication of all. What if the crow isn't unique? What if it's just one outcome? What if fallen crows exist? What if corruption creates its own resurrection archetype? What if killing as the crow doesn't just punish evil, it creates successors? Because, the show hints at something terrifying, that these beings can be made, not just born. That corrupted resurrection is transmissible. That violence doesn't just end evil, it can reproduce it in altered forms. That the mythology isn't binary, good revenant versus bad humans. It's evolutionary. And then the show does nothing with it. Mace is defeated. The arc ends. The mythology stops expanding. The concept is abandoned, not because it's weak, but because it's too big for the format. This is what makes these abandoned villains so frustrating. They don't feel like one-off ideas, they feel like failed foundations, like the beginning of a darker cosmology that never gets the oxygen to grow. These ideas aren't villains, they're unborn mythologies, and Mace Reyes is one of the clearest examples of it. If the crow walked away from its path, and from justice, from balance, from restoration, this is what it would evolve into. Not a demon, not a monster, not a tyrant, but a systemic predator. Something that understands power, resurrection, symbolism, and fear as tools. Something that doesn't avenge, it manages. The most haunting part is this. Mace doesn't want to destroy the crow. He wants to redefine it, which is far more dangerous, frankly. And that's why it's a shame he's left as an afterthought, because he isn't a villain. He's a philosophical mutation of the mythology itself. A proof of concept that the resurrection system isn't morally protected. It's spiritually neutral. And that idea alone could have carried seasons of storytelling. But instead, like so many others, he becomes another abandoned thread in a genre full of them. A glimpse of a bigger universe that never gets built. And that, to me, is worse than a bad villain. Because bad villains die. Wasted mythologies just fade. Thanks for dropping by the snake pit where we thrive on untapped potential and lost opportunities. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell, like the video, and leave your opinions in the comments, where naturally, I won't read them. And until next time, stay venomous.